Oddity is a 2024 horror film that was released in the early part of last year. Selected cinemas, and it wasn't really playing in the area that I'm from, but it is available now on Shudder, and it's definitely something I recommend you should check out. Essentially, the basic story is it begins with a lady alone in an isolated farmhouse at night. Her and her husband are renovating this home, but he's not there because he's a doctor and he works like late shifts away at like a mental institute that he works at there. So the lady's left alone at night, and she gets a knock on the door. She's not really sure who would be out because it is quite isolated, as I mentioned, but she opens it and there's a stranger there. Now this stranger warns her that someone is in the house. He was outside and he's seen someone come in. Naturally, the woman doesn't believe him, so she's quite frightened, as she would be, and she tells him to go away or she's going to call the police, but the guy is persistent, there's someone in there. That's really where the story kicks off. It's no spoiler to say that the lady ends up being murdered, and the story begins to unravel from there. So the film flash forwards a year later, where the husband of the sister goes to visit her twin sister, Darcy. Now, Darcy runs like an antiques curio store in a city in Ireland. It doesn't really say where it is. The film is set in Ireland. The majority of the cast are Irish. The guy who plays the doctor, he's English, I believe, but the majority of the cast are Irish. Now, he goes to see her, and she has an ability. Her store has got haunted items, and she has an ability to read haunted items. Now, the husband has never really, he never says he believes this or he doesn't, but you can sort of tell he's skeptical about it. He invites the lady to come and see them sometime, but it's more like an open invitation. He's moved on and has a new girlfriend. Now, as I said, he says his goodbyes and he leaves. And it's at that point that the story turns. Obviously not to spoil where it's going to go, but the story does turn, and that's what leads to the mystery that plays through the rest of the film. Damien McCarthy's first film was called Caveat. I wasn't really a fan. I thought it was decent. It was a decent film, but the story didn't really do much for me. There were elements of atmosphere that really worked, but as a whole, it wasn't for me. Oddity is a completely different thing altogether. Damien McCarthy shows true skill throughout the entirety of this film. The film creates a complete atmosphere of dread, and you're nervous about what's going to happen next. The setting, the farmhouse location, has been picked excellently. It's a brilliant location to shoot a low-budget, independent, small casted film. I mean, it's almost play-alike in how it's directed. The characters are fantastic. All the actors are really, really good in the film. The main actress who plays Darcy is fantastic. She plays both roles of her and her twin sister. And how she plays the mystery of what she can do and what she knows is really, really well done. All the scares in the film are earned scares. Some people would call them jump scares, but they're earned. Every setup, every movement, every shot, it's leading you to a scare that is always integral to keeping you on your edge of the seat and to the main mystery of the film. There are elements of it that it could be seen as quite frightening. You know, if you're a seasoned horror lover, a seasoned horror film watcher, it takes a lot to unnerve you, it takes a lot to frighten you. But in this film, there was genuine moments where I was like, fucking hell, it was really, really effective. One of the main things that Darcy brings to the home is a wooden chest. Now, at first this seems weird. Well, it is weird, especially the lady that plays the girlfriend of the husband of the sister. The girlfriend of the husband of the sister. Darcy's brother-in-law's new girlfriend. She's really skeptical. She doesn't want her there. She finds her appearance quite ghostly, I suppose. And her mannerisms are a bit off-putting, so she doesn't really want her there. The husband has to go back to work at the hospital, and Darcy just shows up at the door. Now, that open invitation was an open invitation, but Darcy practically shows up like a day or two later. It's not established when, but more or less the next day, maybe the day after. Either way, the guy's on his way to work. Darcy says she'll stay there on her own. The girlfriend's like, well, I'm going to go into the city as well. Her keys go missing. She can't go into the city. And the story goes on from there. A really great horror film, and probably my favourite horror film of last year. Now, there have been other contenders. I mean, Longlegs to me, was a really brilliant film as well. Again, another film that had atmosphere and constant dread the whole way through it. Oddity is a different beast of a film. There's a genuine classiness to this film. Not to say Longlegs didn't have that, it did. But there's a classiness to the performance. There's a subdued performance from the lead actress that just adds that air of class to the whole film, and everyone across the board is really, really good. So I highly recommend it. If there was any cons I had to give this film, and it's really a small thing, is how the film ends. Right at the very end, there was something that was introduced toward the beginning of the story, but we understood what that thing was there for. We understood, okay, this establishes this particular thing, and we get it. How it ends, it just didn't work for me, but it wasn't a big deal. You know, again, doesn't ruin the film whatsoever. It's just a personal issue that I was like, fuck, I didn't need that, but definitely worth watching. So check it out. It's on Shudder. If you've got your subscription, check it out. And I'm sure you can pick it up on all the digitals for pretty cheap now. It's been out for a while. But that's it for that review. Thanks very much for listening. I'm trying my best to get some content up and going. It's a very, very small channel. I'm trying to build that channel. Initially, the point was to focus on short films, and the first two reviews were short films within the genre. First one went over well. The creators were very, very, very nice and kind about the things that I said, and they were very open to letting me review the film. The second one, I got copyright strikes. I tried to reach out to the makers of the film to say, look, do you mind? I'd like to give this a bit of exposure, but I didn't hear anything back. So the copyright strike, which I've written off about, we'll see what happens. But, you know, you can still watch it. The review's still there, and it's something that I do recommend, but, you know, these things happen. So it's going to be a mixture. I'm still going to do some short films, but I'm going to maybe also bring in some features that aren't necessarily unknown, but they're not as well known as the bigger films that are out there that people go to see. Nosferatu, Wolfman, all that. You know, everyone's going to fucking see those, but genuine low budget films that I think deserve attention. That's what I'm trying to do. So hopefully I've turned you on to Oddity, and maybe I can bring a few more movies to your attention as well as we go through this little review journey. So that's it from me. I really, really appreciate your time. Thanks very much, and all the best. See you next one. Thanks.